The instant you feel guilt rise inside you because of someone else's words, something dangerous has already happened. You didn't just feel uncomfortable. You surrendered control. Pause on that for a moment. Every day, countless people walk through their lives burdened by judgments that were never theirs to carry. Opinions thrown carelessly. Accusations disguised as concern. Subtle looks meant to shrink you. And instead of dropping them, you pick them up. You carry them. You replay them. You let them shape how you see yourself. You call it being decent. You call it being considerate. You call it being a good person. It's none of those things. It's weakness, trained, conditioned, and rewarded. Ask yourself something honestly. Why do people who have built nothing, risked nothing, and achieved nothing get to make you feel small? Think about the last time someone shook your confidence. What authority did they actually have? What have they created? What standard do they live by? None. And yet their words stayed with you. You replayed the moment. You refined imaginary arguments. You defended yourself in silence. Meanwhile, they moved on instantly. They dropped their poison and walked away. You're the one still holding it. That ends now. Because what you're about to learn isn't motivation. It isn't confidence building. And it isn't positivity. What you're about to learn is a psychological kill switch, a method so effective most people never dare to use it. Not because it doesn't work, but because it requires you to abandon something they desperately cling to, the need for approval. This is the dark side of power. The side that makes insults collapse. The side that turns shame into silence. The side that leaves others exposed while you remain untouched. You're here because you're tired of being emotionally handled. Tired of carrying guilt that was planted deliberately. Tired of being polite while others quietly dominate you. Pay attention. Because once you see how this works, you won't unsee it. And once you stop reacting, they lose everything. Number 1, why they shame you. Before you learn how to shut shame down, you need to understand why it's used in the first place. Because shame has nothing to do with truth. It has nothing to do with morality. And it has nothing to do with helping you. Shame is about power. Every time someone tries to make you feel guilty, calls you selfish, cold, arrogant, ungrateful, or changed, they are not offering feedback. They are attempting control. They are trying to push you back into a position that benefits them. When someone shames you, they are running a silent test. A test most people fail without realizing it. Think of it as a vulnerability scan. They are checking. Do you still need approval? Do you still care about being liked? Do you still fear exclusion? Do you still want to belong? And the moment you react, the moment you explain yourself, justify your choices, soften your position, or apologize, you've answered the test. You've told them, yes, your opinion matters. Yes, I want your approval. Yes, you can influence me. And from that moment on, the power dynamic shifts. They don't need to raise their voice. They don't need to argue. They don't even need to be right. They own the frame. This is how people get trapped for decades, working, living, and thinking according to the expectations of people who have no real authority over them. They waste their lives trying to prove themselves to individuals who were never capable of recognizing value in the first place. Here's the part most people refuse to accept. Shame only works on those who want to belong. The person who no longer seeks approval cannot be shamed. The person who does not need acceptance cannot be controlled. The person who has detached from the herd is unreachable. This is why outliers are always attacked. History is filled with the same pattern. Anyone who rises, anyone who deviates, anyone who refuses to stay small is labeled dangerous, arrogant, selfish, or immoral. Not because they are wrong, but because their existence threatens those who stayed behind. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He observed that power does not come from being loved by the many, but from being independent of them. The crowd is not interested in your growth. The crowd is interested in stability, especially when your growth reminds them of their own stagnation. So when people shame you, listen carefully to what they're really saying. You are doing something I don't have the courage to do. You are becoming someone I'm afraid I'll never be. And I need you to stop, so I don't have to face that. That's the entire mechanism. They pull you down not out of cruelty, but out of fear. Fear that your movement forward exposes their choice to remain where they are. This is why shame almost always targets ambition, boundaries, independence, self-respect. No one shames someone who is harmless. And here's the decision point, one most people avoid their entire lives. Will you shrink yourself to make others comfortable? Will you apologize for wanting more while others celebrate doing less? Will you let insecure people write the limits of your life? Or will you finally recognize shame for what it truly is? A weapon used by those without power against those who are starting to claim it. Once you see this clearly, something changes. The words stop landing. The guilt stops sticking. And the need to explain yourself begins to disappear. Because you realize something dangerous. They don't shame you because you're wrong. They shame you because you're free. And freedom terrifies people who built their identity around compliance. Number 2, the vacuum response. This is where most people lose without realizing they ever stepped into a fight. Someone throws a comment meant to cut you down. A jab disguised as honesty. A remark designed to embarrass you, especially in front of others. And almost instantly, the reflex kicks in. You explain. You justify. You defend. No, that's not what I meant. You're misunderstanding. Let me clarify. Stop. The moment you defend yourself, you've already lost. Because defending doesn't protect you, it legitimizes the attack. It accepts their frame. It places you inside a courtroom you never agreed to enter, where they act as judge, prosecutor, and jury all at once. There is no winning there. So you don't counter. You don't escalate. You don't react. You remove something they desperately need. Energy. This is the vacuum response. When someone attempts to shame you, they are feeding on reaction, emotion, movement. They need proof that their words landed. Take that away, and the entire structure collapses. Here's how it works. They say something meant to diminish you. And you do nothing. No facial change. No tension. No immediate reply. You look at them calmly and hold eye contact. 4 seconds. Pure silence. It sounds insignificant until you do it. 4 seconds of silence in a social moment feels endless. The air thickens. The pressure flips direction. Suddenly, they're the one exposed. Their mind starts racing. Did I go too far? Why aren't they reacting? Did that not work? Should I say something else? What just happened is critical. They expected resistance. They hit empty space. And when an attack meets nothing, the attacker begins to feel foolish. This is a biological response. The nervous system interprets lack of reaction as dominance. Not aggression, control. You didn't flinch. You didn't chase approval. You didn't try to recover your image. You showed indifference. And indifference is devastating. Most people think power comes from having the perfect comeback, the sharpest line, the most brutal counterattack. It doesn't. Real power is making someone realize their attempt to hurt you was meaningless. After the silence, you choose one of two paths. The first is withdrawal. You turn away and continue what you were doing. You remove your attention entirely. No acknowledgement. No closure. This is not rudeness. This is hierarchy. It communicates one message clearly. You are not important enough to engage. People underestimate how destructive this is socially. Attention is currency. When you refuse to spend it, the other person loses status instantly, especially in front of witnesses. The second option is even colder. You respond, but not to what they said. You change the subject completely. They insult you. You pause. Then calmly ask about something practical, unrelated, or procedural. In that moment, you've done something ruthless without raising your voice. You've shown that their words didn't even register as worthy of response. Both options accomplish the same thing. You don't argue. You don't explain. You erase the attack. And once you do this a few times, something shifts. People stop testing you. Not because you're intimidating. Not because you're aggressive. But because attacking you becomes unrewarding. It's like punching a wall. The only pain felt is their own. You remain composed. You remain neutral. You remain untouched. And that's what makes this strategy so effective. You don't look emotional. You don't look defensive. You look unbothered. That image spreads. Your reputation changes quietly. People begin to understand there's no leverage on you. No guilt to pull. No reaction to exploit. You didn't overpower them. You didn't humiliate them. You simply refused to participate. And in social dynamics, the person who refuses to play controls the outcome. Drop this affirmation in the comments. Silence is power. Number 3, frame reversal. Silence breaks most attacks. But not all. Some people don't want resolution. They want reaction. They push again. They repeat the label. They escalate the shame. This is where you stop absorbing pressure and start redirecting it. This is frame reversal. When someone calls you cold, selfish, arrogant, ruthless, or difficult, they expect denial. They expect you to scramble for moral ground. They expect you to prove you're still good. You don't. You do the opposite. You agree. Not sarcastically. Not defensively. Calmly. Yes. Correct. That's true. And then you add 2 words that destroy the entire exchange. Now what? That's it. Those 2 words end the game. Why? Because the insult only works if you resist it. The moment you own it, the weapon collapses. Shame requires shame. Guilt requires guilt. If you refuse to feel it, there's nothing left to manipulate. Their brain short circuits. They expected you to explain. They expected you to justify. They expected discomfort. Instead, they're standing alone with an accusation that no longer has a target. Think about it. If someone calls you selfish and you spend 10 minutes proving you're not, you've handed them authority. You've told them their judgment matters. But if you say, yes, I put myself first, the accusation loses power instantly. What can they do next? They can't guilt you. They can't shame you. They can't escalate. You removed the leverage. This is the part they never anticipate. The insult was never about truth. It was about control. And when control fails, insecurity is exposed. Now comes the final step of frame reversal. After you agree, after you say now what? You ask one calm question. Not an attack. Not a defense. A mirror. Questions like, does judging me make you feel better? Is focusing on me easier than fixing your own situation? Are you talking to me or trying to convince yourself? These questions don't argue your innocence. They question their motive. And that's lethal. Because now the attention shifts. The spotlight moves off you and onto them. Suddenly, they're the one explaining. The one justifying. The one exposed. Most people fold instantly. They backpedal. They laugh it off. They say they were joking. They claim they were just being honest. That's how you know it worked. You stayed calm. You stayed controlled. You never raised your voice. And because you remained composed, they have nowhere to go. If you stay unemotional, they can't accuse you of being sensitive. If you stay curious, they can't claim victimhood. This is why frame reversal is so powerful. You don't fight the accusation. You transcend it. You show that labels don't define you, and never did. Over time, people learn something important about you. Trying to shame you doesn't elevate them. It exposes them. And once people realize that attacking you only reveals their own insecurity, they stop. Not because they respect you emotionally. Because they respect you strategically. They know you're not a safe target. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I own myself. Number 4, the untouchable identity. Everything up to this point has been tactical. Silence. Non-reaction. Frame reversal. They work, but tactics alone won't keep you safe long-term. To become truly immune to shaming, you need something deeper than technique. You need an identity shift. Most people remain vulnerable to shame for one reason. They are trying to prove they are good. Good enough. Moral enough. Acceptable enough. That need is the weak point. Ask yourself why certain accusations still sting. Why does being called selfish bother you? Why does cold feel like an attack? Why does arrogance trigger defense? Because somewhere along the way, you were trained to believe that self-sacrifice equals virtue. And that training wasn't accidental. Obedient people are easier to manage. Compliant people are easier to control. Guilt-driven people are easier to use. From childhood onward, you were rewarded for being agreeable. for putting others first, for shrinking your needs to keep the peace. And the people who benefited most from this programming were never the ones sacrificing. The label good person was never a compliment. It was a leash. The moment you stop trying to prove you're good, shame loses its grip. Because you stop asking permission to prioritize yourself. You stop apologizing for boundaries. You stop justifying ambition. You stop explaining why your time matters. And when that happens, people panic. Not because you became cruel, but because you became unavailable for manipulation. Here's the uncomfortable truth most won't admit. Moral outrage is often a disguise for self-interest. People don't shame you because they care about principles. They shame you because they want something from your time, your attention, your effort, your compliance. When you say no, they dress their desire and morality to make you feel guilty for refusing. That's not ethics. That's strategy. Once you develop the ability to see through this, what could be called dark intelligence, you become untouchable. You recognize patterns instead of taking words at face value. You see who benefits from the guilt they're trying to install. And you stop accepting it. The untouchable identity is built on two pillars. First, competence. You must actually be capable. Results matter. Skill matters. Execution matters. Confidence without substance collapses. But when you consistently deliver, when your actions produce real outcomes, you earn the right to ignore empty criticism. Competence becomes your shield. Second, selective indifference. You do not numb yourself to everything. You become precise. You only care about the opinions of those who have earned authority through achievement and alignment. Everyone else becomes background noise. When competence and indifference combine, something powerful happens. You can't be dismissed easily. And you can't be controlled emotionally. Someone tries to embarrass you publicly. You don't react. You don't explain. You don't chase approval. The room notices. Status shifts quietly. Respect recalibrates. Later, someone asks if you were hurt, and you realize you weren't. The comment never made it past the surface. It had nowhere to attach. That's the untouchable identity. Machiavelli understood this clearly. Reputation is not built by being liked. It's built by being respected. And respect comes from boundaries, competence, and self-possession, not endless accommodation. Stop trying to be everyone's favorite. Build something real. Protect your time. Guard your energy. Let critics talk. Many of them will praise you later, once your success becomes undeniable. Pretend they always believed. Pretend they were helping. Remember who they were when you were building. This isn't bitterness. It's clarity. The untouchable identity isn't about cruelty. It's about freedom. You stop shrinking. You stop apologizing. You stop explaining yourself to people who never intended to understand you. And once you reach that point, something final happens. They can still talk. But they can't reach you. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I am unreachable. Number 5, the final severance. By this point, something fundamental should be clear to you. Shame only survives where access exists. People can't control what they can't reach. They can't influence what they can't touch. And they can't dominate someone who has emotionally cut the cord. This is the final stage, where you don't just defend against shaming tactics, but eliminate the conditions that allow them to exist at all. Most people think power is about confrontation. It's not. Real power is withdrawal of access. Every manipulative person relies on one thing: your availability, your willingness to engage, your need to be understood, your hope that explaining yourself will restore harmony. That hope is what keeps the door open. Number 5 is about closing it permanently. This is what Machiavelli understood better than most. People respect boundaries they are not allowed to cross. Once you identify someone who repeatedly uses shame, guilt, or moral pressure to control you, you stop negotiating with them emotionally. You don't argue. You don't confront. You don't announce your decision. You downgrade their access. They no longer get explanations. They no longer get emotional visibility. They no longer get proximity to your inner world. You become polite, distant, efficient, and unreachable. This is not punishment. This is containment. Some people only behave because they believe they still have influence over you. Remove that belief, and their behavior collapses. They will test you. They'll provoke. They'll accuse you of changing. They'll imply you've become cold or arrogant. That's confirmation, not a problem. It means the leverage is gone. Here's the rule you must internalize. Anyone who requires your guilt to stay connected to you does not deserve access to you. Connection that depends on self-betrayal is not connection, it's control. When you stop feeding that dynamic, something remarkable happens. Your environment changes. The people around you become calmer, more respectful, more intentional. Not everyone stays. And that's the point. Those who only valued you for what they could extract will drift away. Those who respect strength and boundaries will move closer. This is the severance. You stop managing other people's emotions. You stop explaining your choices. You stop softening your truth to make others comfortable. You act. You decide. You move forward. And anyone who cannot handle that watches from a distance. This is where shame loses its last foothold. Because shame requires intimacy without respect. And you no longer allow that combination to exist in your life. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to be aggressive. You don't need to dominate. You simply become unavailable for manipulation. And once that happens, they can say whatever they want. It won't reach you. Now you understand the system. The silence. The reversal. The identity. But none of this matters if it stays theoretical. Power is not something you admire. It's something you practice. The next time someone tries to shame you, you don't rush to explain. You don't soften yourself. You don't apologize for existing with ambition. You pause. You let the weight fall back onto them. You either give them nothing, or you own exactly what they accuse you of. And then you walk away knowing something they don't. Their words only work on people who still need approval. This isn't cruelty. This isn't arrogance. This is self-respect taken seriously. You are not here to be liked by everyone. You are here to be effective. To build. To move forward without dragging the emotional baggage of insecure people behind you. The right people will never try to shame you. They recognize strength instantly. The wrong people will always try. Because strength exposes what they lack. Let them talk. History is full of people who mocked first and begged for proximity later. Remember who doubted you while you were building. Remember who tried to shrink you when you refused to stay small. And don't confuse late applause with loyalty. Machiavelli understood this clearly. Reputation is not built on kindness. It's built on boundaries and capability. Stop asking permission. Stop negotiating your worth. Stop handing emotional weapons to people who haven't earned the right to speak into your life. From this point forward, when someone tries to shame you, don't react emotionally. React strategically. Become unreachable. Become so grounded in your direction that their opinions fail to land. Become someone whose silence is louder than their insults. They can't control what they can't touch. They can't dominate what refuses to engage. And they can't shame someone who no longer feels guilt for choosing their own path. That's real power. Not rage. Not arguments. Not revenge. Distance. Indifference. And relentless self-command. If you're still here, this message wasn't meant to scare you. It was meant to wake you up. Build yourself into someone they can only talk about. Never influence. And remember this. They can't break what they can't reach. Never tolerate shaming again.